right. So we are going to go ahead and jump in. I'm so honored to be here with all of you again today and excited to have you joining me as we kind of explore the prepared environment, which is the Montessori term to describe the classroom space. Before we jump into the content, I'd like to share a few details that define me as your host for today and also the creator of this presentation for those of you who might not have attended one of my previous sessions. So as I said, my name is Heather White. I'm a former Montessori classroom teacher, administrator, and in-home caregiver with nearly 15 years of experience in the world of Montessori. I now work as an educational consultant, an instructional guide, practicum advisor, and field consultant for adult learners who are training to receive their Montessori certification through the Center for Guided Montessori Studies. And I'm also a blog writer and content creator for several organizations, including the American Montessori Society and Guide and Grow. I hold certifications from AMS, the American Montessori Society, in the 3 to 6 and 6 to 9 age groups, which would be typically your ages for pre-K, kindergarten, first, second, and third grade. I've also taught in the 9 to 12 classroom, which is 4th, 5th, and 6th grade as well. I have a master's in education with a concentration in Montessori studies and an education specialist degree in school psychology. I'm also a nationally certified school psychologist. So during today's session, as I said, we're going to talk about a range of topics, starting with identifying what the prepared environment is. We'll explore the teacher or the guide's role in preparing the environment. The guide is what Montessorians often refer to as the teacher because it's more of a gentle guidance than a teaching directly. We'll also take a look at the importance and benefits of this prepared space and also some ways that that prepared environment can be created within the home setting as well. Throughout today's presentation, I would love for you all to add your questions and comments in the chat or to use that raise hand feature that Antonella was mentioning so that you can ask your questions or share your comments as we go. It's wonderful for it to be a collaborative experience, and I want it to be meaningful for each and every one of you. I wanted to start with a quote from Dr. Montessori herself to help inspire us and to consider the importance of that prepared environment. So in her book, Citizen of the World, Dr. Montessori once said, "It is to correspond to these needs for independence that we prepared an environment proportionate to the size and intelligence of the children, where they could work and achieve independence of the adult." So considering those words of wisdom from Dr. Montessori, I wanted to just pause for a second before we take a deep dive and ask your opinion on what you believe a prepared environment is. Whether it's in a classroom space or in a home setting, what do you think a prepared environment for a child looks like? What are some of the materials it might include or some of the aspects it might feature? And again, feel free to drop those thoughts in the chat or to use the raised hand feature and share that way as well. Yes, Emmanuel, go ahead and unmute yourself.
All right, so thank you so much. I'm so much engrossed into this topic, and I know I'm going to learn a lot. But I think a prepared environment is the environment that is age appropriate, that is interest appropriate, that is child friendly, and works on the holistic development of the child, such that whatever the child is taught, whether in the classroom or at home, there's an environmental condition that promotes what is taught and learned too. That's my take on that, the prepared environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, those are some great points. You mentioned some key aspects there that it, focuses on the holistic development of the child. It takes their interests into account. It's age appropriate. So you are including things in the environment that's appropriate for that age child. And those things would happen, as you said, whether that's in the classroom space or in the home setting. Those are all things that could be incorporated in both. Absolutely. Any other thoughts that anyone wants to share on what you feel a prepared environment is or what it might include? All right, if you have some thoughts as we go, again, feel free to share them in the chat or to raise your hand, but we'll go ahead and take a look at what Dr. Montessori had to say about the prepared environment. Oh, I see a comment here in the chat, an environment that's conducive to learning. Yeah, and I think that, again, can happen at home or in the classroom, right? It's an environment that encourages growth and development. And that could be for a child or even for an adult, right? Yes, Priscilla, go ahead. It looks like you're unmuted, Priscilla, so we should be able to hear you. Priscilla, are you able to hear us? I see that you have your hand raised.
Doesn't have a microphone because they often to unmute her. And so, Priscilla, you can write the comment in the chat and Heather will read it to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Antonella. While we're giving Priscilla just a moment, I see Emmanuel also said an environment that reduces cultural shocks. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. So it's really important that the environment creates this sense of safety and security, right? Because it's that belonging and that safety and security that's needed to promote that learning, that growth and development that we were discussing. All right, so I want you all to imagine a space that's filled with beauty and wonder, that inspires a sense of calm and is designed to meet your every need. Known for its simplicity, its visual appeal, and individual tailoring to meet the needs of the children it houses, that is the Montessori prepared environment. The prepared environment is a carefully prepared learning space where everything has a purpose and a place. A distinct sense of order exists that really helps children develop logical thought processes. The fundamental idea behind the prepared environment is order and environment and in mind. When you walk into a Montessori prepared environment, particularly into a Montessori classroom, for the very first time, it becomes immediately apparent that the space has been meticulously arranged with the child's needs in mind. Montessori classrooms are carefully designed to encourage that internal order by promoting external order and to really facilitate independence and self-motivation for children. They allow the child to develop competence in caring for themselves and their environment, independent of the assistance of the adults. Yeah, go ahead, Elaine. You can unmute yourself.
The slide is not moving.
So right now you should.
We're still in the title page.
Okay. What do you see? Can you tell me what you see on your screen right now, Elaine? Let me.
What I can see is the title page, the prepared environment.
So the page that I'm on says prepared environment. That's why I'm asking. The page that I'm on is half green and the left half is a classroom with a wooden table and a shelf against the wall.
Okay.
Is that the page? Is that the page you're seeing?
Yeah, I thought you were moving the slide because you mentioned a lot of things already. I'm sorry. I thought
No, that's okay. That's okay. We're going to go to the next slide right now. Thank you for trying to help.
Okay, thanks.
So there are three key features that really guide that preparation of the environment: freedom, beauty, and also exposure to nature. And I just wanted to kind of make a comment here about that nature piece specifically. So in a couple weeks, I'm going to be doing another presentation about that exposure to nature, that benefit of incorporating and promoting a child's connection with nature, and how the Montessori pedagogy and philosophy does that naturally. So I'd love for you all to come back and join me to dive a little bit deeper into that idea. But within that Montessori environment, Dr. Montessori really felt like children should be given the freedom. They should be given freedom to choose their own activities, to follow their interests, and to select the learning activities they wanted to do based on their current inner sensitive periods. We talked about that in a previous session for those of you who were able to be here. Those sensitive periods are just a time in a child's development where they have this heightened ability to gain a new skill or to absorb new knowledge. And they're really driven to do things related to that sensitive period. So as Emmanuel was saying earlier, that prepared environment is set up in a way that the materials are there that children of a certain age are typically drawn to, so that they're able to explore those interests and meet those sensitive periods. The next idea is that the prepared environment includes beauty. So beauty refers to the creation of an environment that's visually appealing, that's an inviting space that encourages the child to really be drawn in and to explore. The activities are organized, are kept in a specific space, and are in good repair. The materials should also be attractive and are designed specifically to pique the child's interest. It's helpful to incorporate objects and experiences that are based in reality and in nature, like a stool so the child can access the sink independently for hand washing, because a child really wants to become independent. So that will draw them in as well. Experiences with nature are that third key feature. Dr. Montessori believed that providing children with the opportunity to experience nature really resulted in a greater understanding and appreciation for order, harmony, and also that beauty. She felt like children should be given opportunities to care for animals and also for plants, to go on nature walks with educators or parents and caregivers, so that they could really develop this appreciation for the beauty of the world that we live in. It's important to also mention that Dr. Montessori emphasized the fact that the prepared environment should be carefully structured to really reflect the structure and the order of the universe, allowing children to internalize the order of their external surrounding, to begin to make sense of the world around them. That's where those elements of reality and nature come into play, and to start to develop a concentration that would allow them to continue to learn and grow. She also talked about the need to create a blended social and intellectual environment where the child is given a freedom to interact with their peers and to choose carefully developed didactic hands-on materials that provide these rich sensorial experiences. Carefully preparing an environment for a child and their experiences in this way ensures that you're offering opportunities for that freedom, structure, contact with nature, and a visual appeal that will really allow a child to obtain their full potential by appealing to those internal sensibilities. So I wanted to kind of step out for a minute from the prepared environment and give you an idea of where the prepared environment fits into the relationship that Dr. Montessori described of three key elements. She believes that there was this really critical symbiotic relationship that existed between the child, the adult, and the environment. These connections create a learning triangle that's a hallmark of the Montessori pedagogy and philosophy that's known as the prepared environment triangle. Each of these three components form a trinity that Dr. Maria Montessori believed should really be treated as one. So the Montessori prepared environment essentially serves as one of the primary educators of the child. The materials that are within this space, the order that exists, is really serving as a second guide or a second educator. This is why Montessori teachers are commonly referred to as guides, as I was mentioning. When the child's environment is prepared adequately, a Montessori teacher needs to do little more than just guide the children within the environment to explore what has been prepared and established for them. The adult, whether that's the parent, the caregiver, the educator, is led by careful observations of the child's needs demonstrates how to use the materials in the environment, models appropriate behavior, and entices the child to engage with the environment. They also are responsible for carefully preparing and maintaining the environment so that the child is able to interact with it independently. In this way, the adult's role is really to serve as this dynamic link between the child and the environment. As Sarah Warner Andrews, author of the article, The Myth of the Perfect Child, once said, regardless of what the child brings to us, our work as teachers is to prepare an environment that supports positive self-construction, a safe, beautiful place where children find the raw materials they need to do their work. It doesn't matter whether their work is learning how to get along with others, or practicing independence, or learning that adults can be trustworthy, or learning how to take risks, or learning how to build the number rods. We know that the psychological environment that we prepare is even more important than the physical environment. Our work is to connect children to the prepared environment. That means we need to cultivate our relationship with each of the children so that they trust us to provide what they need and trust us to stop them if they're straying too far away. It means we need to observe carefully, to figure out what the obstacles are, and to remove them one by one. So again, as Emmanuel was saying earlier, it really is this place that is safe and secure, that creates this sense of belonging for the child. It removes those obstacles. And that's part of the adult or the prepared adult's role as teacher or parent, is to remove those obstacles, to observe when they're there, and really make sure that the child feels safe, secure, and connected. I wanted to make a note that the home space can be prepared in a similar way to that classroom space. Again, it's the adult's role to prepare the environment to ensure that everything is just right, that allows the child these meaningful experiences that they seek. Not every space in the home needs to be child-sized. So I know we talked about things being age appropriate, right? And some of the pictures that I have here are really this beautiful space that has been established for the child in mind, right? You can see the pictures of the bedroom where everything is at the child's level. They have access to everything. And although you do want to prepare the space with the child in mind and create these areas where they have access to things independently, not every single thing in the home environment needs to be child-sized. After all, there are different members of the family living in the same space that have different needs as well. But it can still be possible to create a space within each area of the home that is set up with the child in mind so that they can enjoy that space and feel comfortable and welcomed as well. Ashley Ye, who is founder of the Hapa Family Vlog, you can find their videos on YouTube. She's also author of the book, The Montessori Home. She says, setting up our homes in ways that show respect for our children's capabilities means intentionally creating functional spaces that are designed for their everyday use. So maybe instead of here in this picture, you can see the child has their own kitchen, right? And a lot of times in a Montessori home, this kitchen space would be set up so that it had running water, so the child was able to wash their own dishes, get their own water when they're thirsty, prepare their own snack. Maybe they have snacks in the bottom cupboards. That's not a necessity. Instead, you could use one of the lower kitchen cabinets to store a child's snacks or their bowls and plates and utensils so that they had independent access to them. Or maybe you add a stool at the sink so that they were able to wash their own dishes or to wash their hands when they need to. So there are different ways that you can be mindful of this space to make sure that the child feels welcomed. When speaking to parents, Dr. Montessori noted, in the home, the ideal environment for the child should also contain child-sized furniture and utensils which he can handle himself. This is not yet practical in every home, but at least the adults can provide the child with a suitable spiritual environment. And I really felt like this was important because Dr. Montessori emphasizes that, again, right, the child-sized furniture, the utensils, that we should try to provide things that are intended for the child's use specifically. But even if we're unable to do so, the most important thing is that we create this welcoming, safe, secure, spiritual environment, is what she called it, where the child feels that sense of belonging, acceptance, acknowledgement that they're valued, and that they really belong there. Here are some little tips for creating that prepared home environment. First, you can look for child-sized furniture that the child is able to manage independently. Maybe you incorporate a small table and chairs that are just the right height for the child's feet to sit flat on the floor, like the one shown here. This can be used for them to do little activities, or even as a snack table if you add it to the kitchen space. Make the space visually appealing and inviting. You can display art or plants or even cultural artifacts, things that are important to your heritage or to your family. Put them at the child's height so that they can enjoy them. Add visual interest and beauty in the materials themselves. Use very intricate baskets or containers. Ensure that all the activities are beautifully arranged on the shelves and that they're in good repair so that the child feels invited to explore them. They're eager to see what they contain or what's inside. I wanted to go back for just a minute to the idea of displaying things at the child's height. So often, even in children's bedrooms, we are focused on setting up the environment and we think about it from our own perspective. But Dr. Montessori really encouraged hanging things at the child's eye level or seeing the space from the child's eye level. And that's the last point here, is to make changes to your child's environment or to the child's environment that suits their needs. That can become much easier if you get down on their level. Look at things from their perspective. When you're down on the floor at their height, what do you see that might be out of their reach that they're unable to access without asking for your help? Do they have a space to put all their belongings away that there wouldn't be clutter? Can they access everything that they need? If they need to blow their nose, if they need to wash their hands, are they able to reach those things? You might even notice something like tempting wires or clutter under shelves that you didn't see from your adult's height. And again, we hang pictures at our eye level. If we get down on the child's eye level, and that's where we add pictures or plants or artifacts, then that's really seeing the space and preparing the space with the child in mind, because they're going to see those things and be drawn in. If they're hung up high where they're not able to see them without lifting their head, it won't be as captivating or as intriguing for them. Also look for ways in this space that the child can help themselves and become more independent. Put things within their reach, have activities and materials set up on trays or in baskets on the shelf so that everything the child needs is within one container. And then finally, ensure that everything has a place and remains in its place. So this is really important because this is what establishes that order and environment, which creates that order in mind Dr. Montessori talked about. The child internalizes that sense of order. And that's established by ensuring that everything is very structured. Everything has a place and goes back to that place. So the principles of the prepared environment can be really easily applied in different areas of the home as well. For instance, in the living room space, maybe you add a low shelf where you arrange a child's activities, or you could even display them on the bottom shelf of a TV cabinet or in a windowsill that the child can independently access. Maybe you add that small table and chairs for the child to sit at to do their activities, maybe even a small bookcase. In the bedroom, furniture could be child size as well. A lot of Montessori homes use floor beds like the ones shown on the previous slide, so that the child can independently access their sleeping space. A child-sized wardrobe or even a low-hanging rack or a shelf or drawers in a closet can promote independence with dressing oneself and choosing one's clothes. A low-hanging mirror can help a child with learning how to get dressed on their own as well. And allowing a child access to a light switch. Maybe you use an extender, or maybe they have some kind of, I've seen little pointers like teachers use in the classroom so that they can reach the light, or maybe even a small lamp is another simple way to support a child's independence. In the kitchen, that low shelf or cupboard, or even a drawer, like I was talking about earlier, where a child's plates or glasses, placemats, utensils are arranged, allows for independent access. And you could even use that as a small self-serve snack station where you have a basket with a few snacks that the child can access when they feel hungry. I always get questions from parents and caregivers with that of, what if the child eats all of them? And the idea is, goes back to the Montessori principle of freedom within limits. So you're giving them the freedom to have snack when they are hungry, but the limit you're setting is that only the snacks that are provided in the basket are available. So let's say you provide 3 options. As the parent or caregiver, you need to be okay with that child eating all 3 if that's what they choose to do. So you're only giving them the amount you're okay with them having at one time, because some children will eat everything that's available. And then the natural consequence for that is the snack is all gone. So when they're hungry in the afternoon and they don't have a snack, they've learned that, they ate all the snack in the morning. And of course, you'd still be offering breakfast, lunch, and dinner at the times the family is eating as well. Another way that you can prepare the kitchen environment is a stool placed at the countertop, or some families choose to use what's known as a learning tower or a kitchen helper that allows the child to reach the countertop height to wash dishes or help with food preparation. Some families also use what's known as a weaning table, or there's a special high chair that children are able to enter and exit on their own, like the Stoke Trip Trap. That's one example. The bathroom space is another area where it's really vital to facilitate independence, especially for activities like self-care, brushing one's hair or one's teeth. So you can add a stool so that the child is able to reach the sink or to climb in the tub on their own. A hand washing station might be another way to introduce this for a child who's not ready or is a little hesitant to climb onto a stool or steps. And this could easily be purchased or DIY'd with a large bowl, a pitcher, some soap, and a hand towel on just a low table or shelf. For children who are toilet learning, a step stool with a child-sized toilet seat or even a child-sized potty can be helpful to support independence in this area. And then also just thinking about putting the child's toothbrush, their toothpaste, hairbrush, and a small towel within their reach is also helpful. In her book, The Child in the Family, Maria Montessori summarizes this establishment of the prepared environment in the home. She states, "We must give the child an environment that he can utilize by himself. A little washstand of his own, some small chairs, a bureau with drawers that he can open, objects of common use that he can operate, a small bed in which he can sleep at night, under an attractive blanket he can fold and spread by himself. We must give him an environment in which he can live and play." So Montessori environments then aren't just pretty spaces with a bunch of nice looking stuff arranged neatly on these beautiful shelves. What's most important of the prepared environment is that it really serves this really important purpose. And I apologize, I see there's some little blue lines here, but I'm not sure. I'm going to stop my share for just a moment and see if I start it again, if those go away, because I know right now it's right in front of that, those words that you all are trying to read. So let's try this again. Okay, there we go. Now you should be able to read it. So the prepared environment serves this really important purpose. It provides children with a safe place that they can explore and develop their growing independence. And that's really what children are seeking, is this autonomy. They want to be more independent. And the prepared environment gives every child the freedom to really develop their unique potential. It provides the structure and the order that children need that accurately reflects the order and the structure that we are hoping to provide in a child's daily life as well. And it's that order and structure that allows children to really work according to their own ability and to build the concentration that they need to continue growing and learning. Yes, Antonella, thank you so much. If anyone has a question, please feel free to raise your hand or to add it into the chat. And we will have time at the end as well. But if anyone has a question or comment about anything we are discussing currently, that would be wonderful. I'll pause for just a minute and let you guys kind of think about that and see if there's anything you wanted to ask. So, oh yes, go ahead, Emmanuel. I apologize.
Thank you once again for the insights that you are giving us. The concern we have in our parts of the world, I'm in Ghana, and I do organize training for teachers, preschool, primary, middle school, high school. Basically, I work on phonics and some pedagogy, how to teach the English language. That's my area of specialty. And the concern we've had with the teachers is that when they use the materials, because we help them to design materials that they use in teaching the kids, wall displays and all that. Now they claim that the kids steal the materials away. And I tell them that they are only telling you that learning does not end in the classroom. They are not going to chew the material. They are not going to destroy them. They want to go and use the materials at home. So as you have mentioned, we need to work with parents to also help so that as we create a conducive environment in the school, it is replicated at home, and then so school, home, they are still learning. But the concern we have is you're working with parents who cannot afford some of these things and then all that. But what do we do? Any suggestions how we can help parents so they support the environment we've created in the school at home?
Absolutely. And I'm just curious, Emmanuel, how old are the children that are attempting to kind of take these materials home with them that are so excited?
All right, so these are KG, class 1, class 2, those phonics materials, yes.
Okay.
It's not about stealing. They have fun with it. So when they are done, they pick them, they
They're
put them in their bag. They want to go and continue with the activity at home, yes.
Right, yeah, they want, and the other reason I asked as well is because there is something, it's known as a schema, and so it's similar to a sensitive period. Dr. Montessori didn't talk about them specifically, but they can help us observe different interests of children and provide things aligned with those interests. And one of them is known as a transporting schema. And so a lot of times you see young children, usually the ages of 3 to 6, who want to carry things in their hands or in their pockets, move them from one place to another. And also, Dr. Montessori, one of the sensitive periods is small details and tiny objects. So for instance, I was going to see if I had a picture here. I believe it was on, I'm going to go back to, I'll come back to this slide, but I want to show you on the very first slide, we have what's known as the pink tower. It's this material here on the left-hand side. And if I even go back to the very first, you can see right up at the tippy top in between the letter P and the opening for the letter P is this tiny little cube. And that very first cube often goes missing in a classroom. And again, it's not that children have this desire to steal, right? They're just so fascinated by it because they love this material. The pink draws them in, the tiny nature. And so that often happens that they take it home. Again, like you're saying, they want to continue their learning. They like the material itself. But what I would say for the situation that you're describing I think the first piece that would be important would be to try to offer some type of parent education. So if you could invite the parents into the classroom and talk to them about the things that you're doing and give them suggestions for how they can continue it at home. So for instance, you know, in the Montessori classroom, we have the same situation, right? Parents aren't able to buy a whole set of classroom materials and offer them at home. Or even for an older child in elementary, the parents are wanting homework and you can't replicate the Montessori classroom. So what can I do? And so we try to provide them with the parent education and also with a list that they can reference of ways that they can supplement that learning more naturally at home. So for instance, and this would be a little different obviously for phonics, but for instance, if you're thinking about a child who's learning about money in the classroom, when you go to the store with them, let them count the money out, help them, but let them count the money out. Or if you have a child who's learning about numbers and volume and measuring, let them measure the food when you're prepping food with them at home. So if there's ways that the parents could introduce some of the same skills that you're introducing in the classroom. So for phonics, maybe it would be creating like a really literature rich environment at home. And I will, when I finish sharing the screen, I will find it if you remind me and I'll share it in the chat with everyone. I wrote a blog about creating a literature rich environment at home. And it's not just about reading with your child, it's about having a reciprocal conversation with them. It's about having them read to you. It's about expressing to them, sportscasting is what it's called, telling them what you're doing throughout the day. But if you could find ways like that, that they could more naturally keep the conversation or the instruction going at home, it feels a little more natural and it doesn't feel like what we always heard from parents is it felt like we were giving them homework, right? This is something else I have to do. So I think ways that you can find that fit into their natural routines is really helpful as well.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much, Trace.
You're welcome. I see some comments in the chat. Let's see. I really appreciate the message and say congratulations for this speech. My question is, children will develop in terms of age and other kind of development. Now, how can we work to adapt the environment with the needs of children? Yeah, so part of the prepared environment is considering the age of the child. So a lot of the photos that I've shown you are for young children, typically up until about the age of 6. And so as the child got older, specifically, let's look at the picture that's here in the background, right? The shelves are very low. They're working on things like buttoning and zipping. You have a shape sorter. So as the child gets older, let's say they're in elementary school, they're in 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade, the shelves are going to be a little bit higher because the child is taller. The materials are going to be a little more complex because now instead of working on things like buttoning and pouring and sorting shapes, they're working on things like reading and learning the basics of addition and subtraction and multiplication. So there's going to be materials, let's see, I believe there might even be a shelf here. So in this picture, you can see a little bit more, like this cabinet has a bunch of different geometry shapes in it for the child to explore. I believe there's even one a little bit farther back here that shows some more, perhaps I didn't have it in this presentation. They're very complex math materials that help a child learn how to add, subtract, multiply, divide. There are even materials for fractions and for decimals. So it's really about keeping in mind the age of the child and making sure that the entire environment and the materials within it are specific to that age child and to their needs. So hopefully that addresses your question. I see another question here. Sometimes everything the child gets, everything at home and school, but still take others' books and stationery. So, I think what's most important is to try to observe the child and figure out the reason. It sounds like in this situation, it's not necessarily that the child is interested in the learning, right? But it sounds like probably what's happening is that child is trying to connect with another child and isn't really sure how to do so. So they might be taking the book or the stationery to get that other child's attention, or maybe even to get your attention. So a big key in Montessori, and again, I had a session on this a few months ago, is about what we call the art of observation. It's not just a science, it's really an art that you can master, but identifying why children do the things they do. There's always a reason behind children's behavior. So if you could figure out, was that child trying to connect with the other child? Were they trying to get your attention? And when they took the book or the stationery, that's when you gave them attention. That would be a cue to you to give them that attention, or try to create moments where you're giving them that attention in a more positive way, so that they don't need to take those things to get your attention. Or if they're trying to connect with another child, model for them. And there's a whole area of the Montessori classroom called grace and courtesy. And what that really is explicit instruction, but also role playing, where children understand how to do things like greet someone else, ask someone if they want to play, hold the door open for someone, introduce themselves, sneeze politely. So really, it's our role as the adult to figure out what the child's motive is, or what it is that they need, what's the need behind the behavior, and then to give them the support or the guidance that they need from there. Children, I see another question here. Children need to be guided, absolutely, and do not need to be given everything they need. Yeah, you want them to seek out the things that they need, really fostering that independence. So therefore, my question is that, are we not spoiling them by preparing such an environment as you have mentioned? So that's an interesting thing. So I don't think we're spoiling them. You're not giving them everything. You're just setting up an environment that draws them in so that they meet their own needs. So for instance, let's think about, and here is a good example of the shelf right in front of, shown right here on the back of the wall, right? There's a buttoning, these are called dressing frames. There's a buttoning frame, a zipping frame. These aren't necessary, especially in a home environment. Children are going to learn how to button and to zip, and it looks like maybe these are snap buttons. They can learn how to do that with clothing. So instead of something like this, what you could do is offer a child a jacket with a zipper or a shirt with buttons, model for them how to do it, gradually let them take over as they're able to do so, as their fine motor skills develop. So it really just depends on what the individual materials are, but absolutely not everything is needed. You do want, there's actually some research to show that boredom, right, for children to experience some level of boredom is good, because that's when they become creative. So you want to set up an environment that does draw a child in. And in the home, again, that's going to look different than in the classroom. In the classroom, it's going to be prepared to meet their needs, their every need mostly. But in the home setting, you want to give them some of this freedom or this downtime so that they do experience some of that boredom. Let's see, another question here. What are the merits and demerits of the Montessori method towards sustainable development of the child? I'm going to ask if you could, Mohammed, could you kind of, oh, I see you have your hand raised. Go ahead and unmute yourself. Can you clarify that a little bit for me of what you mean?
Yes, hello. Thank you for your good presentation today. Your presentation focused on Montessori's method towards development of the child. Every method have some merits and demerits. So I was interested to know about what are the main merits and demerits of this method towards the sustainable development of the child.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of research that supports Montessori in allowing children to be more independent. There are research studies that show that as children get older, they do they perform more favorably on more standardized assessments. I think probably one of the biggest merits of the Montessori method is that it really helps children learn to be what Dr. Montessori called global citizens. So they learn how to interact with one another, how to interact with the world, how to be kind, how to think about the betterment of another person, how to help themselves, how to help the environment. I think that's probably the biggest takeaway, is that independence and that thought and kindness towards others and towards the environment. And they're really self-sufficient. I think that possibly if you're looking at demerits, I think that going back to the idea of standardized assessments, people have shown that, so Montessori operates in 3-year cycles. So you have kindergarten, or you have 3, 4, and 5-year-olds together. So typically what you think about is pre-K1, pre-K2, and kindergarten. You have 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade together, 4th, 5th, and 6th. And the Montessori curriculum is a spiral curriculum. It's a 3-year cycle. So when you're in, let's take 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade, for example, you might not cover a topic at all 3 levels, or you might be introduced in 1st grade, dive a little deeper in 2nd grade, and then really dive really deeply in 3rd grade. Or maybe you talk about rocks and minerals in 1st grade, and you talk about volcanoes in 2nd grade, and you talk about the water cycle in 3rd grade. So if I'm taking a standardized assessment that's based on either state norms or national norms and standards, and I'm in 1st grade and I haven't learned about the water cycle yet, I'm probably not going to do as well as a student who's enrolled in maybe a public school where they have had that instruction. So there is a little bit of data to show that in the first 2 years of a cycle, children don't do as well from Montessori backgrounds on those measures of standardized assessment. But if they complete the 3-year cycle, and that 3rd year, when they take the assessment, then they tend to outperform their peers from other school backgrounds or other schooling. But that's one thing to keep in mind, I think, because parents often say, well, if they're getting this rich curriculum that's exposing them to so much, why is Susie from, a public school performing better than they are? Why does she know more? And it's not necessarily that she knows more, it's just that that student has had the full 3-year cycle. I think the other big merit for Montessori is that it promotes holistic development for children. So it's not just focused on academic knowledge, but it helps them learn and grow as an entire human. It helps them with their social growth, their emotional growth, academic. And so it really is more of a well-rounded, again, holistic approach to learning and growing, rather than just focused on the academics. Does that answer your question, Mohammed?
Yes, thank you, Heather White. You have nicely answered my question, and thank you very much for your good presentation.
Let's see, I see one more question in chat, and then I'm going to come to the 2 folks that have their hands raised. So the other question in chat, it looks like from Zachariah, is how do they learn if they are independent from adults? Yeah, great question. That's actually a question that a lot of parents of children who are looking at Montessori schools have. And the idea, again, going back to that prepared environment triangle, right? The adult is in this space. The teacher is in this space. They are giving lessons. They're presenting the materials to the child. They're introducing the concepts, but then they're stepping back and allowing the child to explore it on their own. However, they're not completely disengaged. They're observing the child to make sure that they understood the lesson, that they know how to use the materials, that they're doing it correctly. There's something in Montessori called a 3-period lesson. So the idea is I do, we do, you do. And so let's say, for instance, we were talking about helping a child learn their primary colors, red, yellow, and blue. You would first begin by saying, this is red, this is yellow, this is blue. And that's the first period, I do. The second period is we do. It's a back and forth kind of interaction with the guide and the child, where you're saying things like, put red under the rug, hand me yellow, point to blue, put yellow on top of your head, hand red to your classmate. So it's something that's engaging in interaction. You're interacting, you're going back and forth. If the child makes a mistake, if they pick up blue when you say hand me red, you go back to the first period. You say, that's blue, where's red? Or you can say, that's blue, here's red, now hand me red. And then the third period is the assessment piece. That's where you're saying things like, what is this? What is this? And you're pointing to them, and the child is having to recall that name of that color or the number, or whatever it is that you're looking at. When the child gets a little older, usually in elementary levels, the first period is the lesson. That's when you're presenting the concepts to the child. Period 2 is they're practicing independently. They have the material, they're taking it to their workspace, and they're practicing, whether that's addition, whether that is learning about verbs or nouns, right? Like different parts of speech. And then the third period then is you observing the child to see that they have mastered or completely understood that concept. Are they able to complete an addition problem with the golden beads? That's a Montessori material. Are they able to complete that addition problem and get the correct answer? That would be a sign to you as the guide that they have mastered that concept, or that they really understand. That's how you're assessing. So even though they're independent from the adults and they're doing things on their own, there is still that involvement or that guidance through observing. Most predominantly is how the adult knows when to step in and provide more support. Yeah, absolutely, Emmanuel. It's that direct instruction. I do, we do, you do. You're guiding them, and then they're doing that individual practice. Let's see here. I see 2 questions. Is it Salisu? Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello, how are you?
Good to see you once again. I was privileged to attend the last class, and I'm lucky that I'm here. God
I'm
bless
so
you.
glad to have you back. Thank you for coming back again.
Thank you so much. So I have 2 things to point because I heard you talking about living room, bed, kitchen, bedroom. Does this sounds what you practice is a school where the children used to sleep, or the beds are just for relaxing while in the class when you notice that the children need to relax? That is number 1. And secondly, when you look at the, like my other colleagues said, in the other part of the world, does this really sound private, or it is government organized classes? Because where we have institutions that they teach teachers, before a teacher is qualified to be a teacher, he has to attend a school of education, like they call it National Certificate of Education and degree in education. So, it's really hard in some part of the world where this total Montessori philosophy and the pedagogy is not really in place. So what is your advice for people in government on how really this will be established to fit into systems like our own? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to go back here. So a lot of that where I was talking about the living room, the kitchen, the bedroom was more focused for the home. So if you see the picture here in the bottom left and the picture in the top right, these are more bedroom spaces in the home environment. So that floor bed, the wardrobes, those are things that would be in the home space for the child. So in a classroom setting, typically if you have young children and they're napping, they usually have some kind of mat, maybe a pillow or a blanket that they're bringing from home, something that just gives them some kind of security, but something, sometimes a sleeping bag, something you're able to store away in another place. There are schools, Montessori schools, that have lots of young children that are nappers, that might have a nap room, that have these floor beds set up. Although cribs are not necessarily aligned with Montessori because they limit the child's freedom of movement. And the idea with a floor bed is that a child can get in and out on their own without needing to be lifted and put in and removed by an adult. They're able to do it on their own. There are Montessori schools as well that have very young children, because it goes down to even infancy. So there are infant and toddler classrooms that do have cribs as well. But this was more geared towards what's happening in the home setting. For your second question, I'm so glad that you brought that up, because although Montessori is more prevalent in the United States, Montessori is a pedagogy that is used globally. It is all over the world. And even in the United States, there are private schools that are Montessori and there are public schools that are Montessori. Interestingly, the name Montessori is not trademarked, so anyone can say they're a Montessori school without necessarily implementing the pedagogy with fidelity. What you want to look for typically is that a school is accredited, which means that an institution like the American Montessori Society, the Association Montessori International, the International Montessori Committee, someone has gone in and reviewed that the school is implementing the philosophy and the pedagogy in the way that it was intended, the way that Dr. Montessori described it. They're looking at things like the scope and sequence of the curriculum, the way the teachers interact with the children, parent education, admission policies. But with all of that aside, I think that and I'll step back for a moment and say, even with the public schools that we have here that are government funded, there's a lot of challenges because there are standards that are required, or like you're saying, in a public school, a teacher not only has to have Montessori certification, because that's a whole separate program, depending on the age group of the children that you're doing the training for, it can be the equivalent of almost a master's level course, on top of, if you're a public school educator, needing that degree in education like you're referring to. So they're actually doing double the training or the certification to be able to be a certified Montessori educator in a public environment. But like you're mentioning, there's this interesting dynamic where other things come into play when it's government funded, where you have to introduce certain other curriculum or other topics, or there's certain things that are required because you're a public institution. And so I think when it comes down to that, if you're not fully Montessori, so to speak, and I say that in air quotes because I think that then it's really about implementing the philosophy, right? It's the way you show respect to the children, the way you've thoughtfully, you might not have an environment that looks like this, where you have all of the Montessori materials on all of these shelves at the child's level, but it's more about how you engage with the children. It's about how you involve them in making decisions. It's about how you give them opportunities to work with one another or to work in partners or small groups. It's about creating moments where they have the independence to try to figure things out on their own, rather than, I think about a traditional schools where all the children are in individual desks and you're standing at the front of the classroom as a teacher and you're just feeding them information. Maybe you have the ability to move the desks into small groups. And instead of standing at the front of the classroom telling them what to do, you've created an activity that they're doing together as small groups. And as the guide or the teacher, you're walking around the classroom and giving them support and encouragement. So I think it requires a little bit more of looking into the philosophy rather than the method itself, and looking at ways that you can implement some of those ideas about creating opportunities for independence, ways to respect the child. Does that answer your question?
Yes, are you with me, please? Finally, I'm asking whether in these classes you have a separate classes for challenge. We call them special children, or is mixed up. How do you narrow it down?
Yeah, so Montessori really encourages full inclusion. So that would mean that all children are in one environment together, and that you are, and I think that that comes with its challenges. So with my background as a school psychologist as well, I recognize that there are children, and having been an educator for so many years, I have experienced students myself that with me being the sole educator in the classroom and having a classroom of 22 children and a child who had really heightened needs because of their neurodivergence or their exceptionality, there are situations where in order to have children all in the same setting, other adults may need to come in to provide support, whether that's a speech therapist or an occupational therapist, or maybe you just need an assistant, or that child needs what's called a one-on-one guide that's in the classroom with them, providing them the individualized support that they need. Because although you want them to develop independence, there are certain situations for children that have exceptionalities or that are neurodivergent that they do need more individualized instruction or support than their neurotypical same age peer. So Montessori does encourage the inclusion for multiple reasons. There's some research and articles that you can look up on that topic as well, as far as how it teaches children to engage with one another. It creates this more rich experience that's more similar to a real world experience where they learn how to take care of one another, to accept one another, to help one another. So I think there's a lot of benefits, but like I said, it really does depend on if you have the opportunity to provide that support that the teacher and the student who has the exceptionality will need in being in an inclusive setting.
Thank you so much, and God
You're
bless you.
welcome. I'm going to put in the chat, there's 2 really great books on that topic, and I just want to make sure that I do write them correctly. The first is Montessori Strategies for Children with Learning Differences, and that's by Joyce S. Pickering. She actually has, and I'm going to put it here, a training program called MACAR that is about Montessori for children with learning differences. It's a whole other training program for Montessorians to help to know how to create environments that are inclusive and that meet children's needs that have learning differences. And the other is called Montessori Inclusion, Strategies and Stories of Support for Learners with Exceptionalities. And that's by Ann Epstein. Both of those are wonderful books about Montessori for children with exceptionalities, and how that might look in a Montessori classroom.
Thank you so much, Ma.
You're welcome. Let's see, Dr. Jane, you've been waiting for quite a while. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Good afternoon to everyone.
Hello, thank you for being here.
Yeah. This is my second time of attending your presentation. Quite a nice one.
Thank you for coming back.
Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Okay. You made mention in respect to the prepared home environment. You made mention of the living room, the kitchen, the bedroom, the bathroom, which is one of the UN 17 goals for sustainable development, comes 2030. Now, in Nigeria, we have to face facts. So I do believe in certain things when things happen. Those days when they say third world country, I will say, no, my country, you don't belong. But with what is on ground, I strongly believe that we are still in third world country. Now, as a civil servant in Nigeria, going by what you said, importance of the prepared environment, how it helps the children potential, the unique nature, and all that to grow. Going by what is going on in the country, at my level, my 1 year's pay cannot afford to rent a comfortable one-bedroom flat. Talk more of having such bedroom, living room, and all that. So in a situation like this, how do you manage the kids with the pay you're having, the school, better school, which is what UN is talking about for 220, sustainable development. So how do we manage it with the rate of finance and inflation we are having in the country to bring up the children of such potential we are talking about, which are the futures of tomorrow? So with this happening, how do we think the growth of the children of tomorrow will be? What will be the future of their growth tomorrow?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Dr. Jane. So again, going back to what I was saying just a moment ago, I think that although these are, I think this is the ideal, right? If we could create the perfect home environment or the perfect classroom environment, this is what it would look like. Unfortunately, we all live in a time or a place that's not always possible. And so I think there's a lot of articles and research on just embracing the Montessori philosophy. So you might not even be able to implement the pedagogy, right? It might not even be an educational method. You might not be able to have a floor bed or a kitchen helper, a learning tower. You might not be able to have a stool to help the child reach the sink, but it's about how you engage with the child. It's about how you show them respect. It's about how you involve them. Maybe you get down on their level. Maybe you put a towel on the floor with a little bucket and let them help you wash the dishes, right? You let them help you with washing the clothes instead of just doing it for them or taking it away from them, right? So it's really about allowing them to become capable and confident members of the family community and the wider community, giving them opportunities that they can continue to be involved, because that's what's going to build their independence. That's what's going to build their confidence and their capability. And so I think that there's still ways that you can do that, even when you're not able to introduce a dressing frame or a shelf for them or a floor bed. I will share, I'm going to, I see a couple more questions as well. I'm going to finish the presentation so that I can stop sharing my screen, because I want to share a couple of resources with you. There's an article that's really wonderful called Montessori Without the Materials that talks about that. And then there's also a really great video about Montessori in small spaces that I think would be helpful for you as well. So I'll add those to the chat for you in just a moment too.
Okay.
Let's see, I just want to finish, I want to finish sharing here, and then I'm going to come to you, Emmanuel and Chris. Give me just a moment. So I wanted to close with another quote from Dr. Montessori about the prepared environment. And I think this really sums up what the prepared environment is all about. So Dr. Montessori shared, the first aim of the prepared environment is, as far as it is possible, to render the growing child independent of the adult. So that's really what it's about, is promoting that independence. So like I was just saying to Dr. Jane, even if you aren't able to create this perfect, pristine, beautiful environment, right? You can still create opportunities and moments where the child is able to become more independent, more confident, and more capable within the family, within their classroom, and within the wider community as well. So I just wanted to share here on the last slide, basically, again, I'm going to come to the final questions, but say thank you for joining me, whether it's your first time or you're here back again with me. My contact information is here. My email address is there, as well as my website, and my LinkedIn profile is there as well if you have LinkedIn. I'd also love for you to check out my Instagram and Facebook pages. My handle is @Montessori.matters. The logo is there in the bottom left corner. I share parenting content, educational content related to Montessori, and it would be wonderful to see you all in those platforms. I will put this back up if someone needs it in just a moment, but I am going to stop my share just because I wanted to share those resources in the chat that I was mentioning. So let me stop my share here, and I'm going to grab those resources. And while I do, I saw, let's see, who was the next person that had a hand up? Go ahead, Emmanuel.
Thank you so much. It's been very, very enlightening. There are two items that I would like to bring up and then solicit your views and support. One has to do with, I have a daughter who is 6 years, but her reading age is about 10.
Okay.
I will need your help as I go around also supporting the teachers in my country, what I can do to help them identify the reading ages of the kids that they teach. Because I strongly believe that if a child, someone is 14 and the reading age is where it's 11 or 10 or so. So once we identify that, what can we do to help this child to get up to his reading age, his biological age, where materials that he handles, he's able to handle them? What kind of environment do we create to foster that? And then through my readings, I've observed that in the class, there's always the 4 quadrant. We have those who can decode but cannot comprehend. We have those who can comprehend but cannot decode. Then we have a worst scenario of the kind of kids or students who can neither decode nor comprehend. Now, the ultimate and the best we are all anticipating is to have the kids who can read, decode, and also comprehend, understand. So any material or any information that will help us to address these issues and then get a child to be able to read, decode, and comprehend, I'll really appreciate that. Thank you.
I absolutely. So there is a really wonderful book. I actually just finished I was part of a book club. So it's called Powerful Literacy in the Montessori Classroom. That is a wonderful tool. And it covers those same things. It talks about the reading rope, and it covers those different areas of reading that you're describing. I think you would find that really helpful. I also think you might find a tool. Let me see if I can actually find the free resource. So it's for younger children, so it's only going to be helpful. Here's the official page here. It's only going to be helpful for those early learning skills, but it's called DIBBLES. It's the Dynamic Indicators of Basic Early Literacy Skills. It's a free assessment. You can purchase the materials, but they also have them for free if you do a little searching on the internet. But it is an assessment that helps you kind of determine a child's literacy skills, to see what they need, where their gaps are. The other reading assessment that I would recommend, this one you would have to pay for, is called the Diagnostic Assessment of Reading, which is the DAR, or the Gray Oral Reading Test, which is the GORT. These are very easy to give you instructions on how to administer them. But those three, the DAR is more for kindergarten, first, second grade. DIBBLES is about this the same age group, kindergarten, first, second. The Gray Oral Reading Test can be used with older students and upper elementary. But those would be assessment tools that would really help you determine a student's knowledge and then figure out where those gaps are so that you can provide the support that they need. Does that
Okay.
answer your question, Emmanuel?
Oh, yes, perfectly. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm grateful.
You're so welcome. I just want to make sure I'm getting the resources. I put the Montessori Without Materials blog in the chat that I had mentioned to you, Dr. Jane. And I know there was also let's see, I know there was also, I wanted to share with you the Montessori in Small Spaces video. So let me pull that up for you and share that really quick. My goodness, sorry about that. The video started playing. So this is the Montessori in Small Spaces video. And I believe there was one more. Actually, if you search on YouTube, Montessori in Small Spaces, there's quite a few that are really wonderful. So I would just search that on YouTube as well. That's the first one that came up. There is one that's more in depth, that's 20 minutes long. There's another that's 17 minutes long. But those are really helpful, kind of going back to that idea of having like a 1-bedroom flat and what does that look like. So there's a way you can do without the materials and then a way that you can incorporate it in small spaces. There's even people who do Montessori in RVs. So it can be done, most definitely. And then remind me, I believe, let's see, I was speaking with someone earlier. I think it was Salisu. I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself. If you remember, I said I would share a resource with you and I can't recall what it was. So I just want to make sure I get you what I promised. I just remembered it was creating a literacy rich environment. I don't remember if it was Salisu or if it was Emmanuel, but let me grab that link really quick. And then I will take a couple more questions. Okay, so this is the link to cultivating that language-rich environment in the home. Okay, let me check the chat, and then I see Chris and Monica's hand up there. So let's see. This is a very good presentation. I think it should be part of training to teachers during their college time. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. It is great knowledge for parents as well. In some cases, the children who are not active at school, and part of factors contributing to that is the environment they're living in. Absolutely. How can we introduce this to parents so that they can realize that children need this environment? You know, I think going back again to what I was mentioning is parent education. So if you are an educator, if you are an administrator, if there's a way that you can incorporate these ideas and principles and share them with parents, unfortunately, other than that, I think that it is up to the parents to look for this information. I am part of a Montessori group. I'll share it here in the chat as well. It's Montessori at Home 0 to 3 years. I'm the Facebook manager for that Montessori group. And we're doing some work to try to partner. We share lots of resources with parents and caregivers, but also trying to partner with hospitals so that when families welcome children into the world, that they have a connection to these kind of resources. So we're trying, but it is a grassroots movement, and it's definitely something that needs a lot more work and support. Let's see. I see a comment about sharing the PowerPoint, I believe. So Antonella might be able to share a little bit more about that, but I know typically everything is accessible to you all, including a copy of the PowerPoint presentation itself in your portal or in your kind of student area after the presentation. John says it's very important to prepare the environment for the growing child to learn to be independent. But my question is, what activities can we employ to instill a sense of responsibility in them? That is a fabulous question. I'm actually going to be doing a presentation in a couple of months on how to promote responsibility using the Montessori philosophy and pedagogy. So I'd love you to come back and join us for that, John. But basically the things that instill the responsibility is giving children those opportunities to be involved, like I was talking about. Let them help you wash the dishes. Let them help you wash their own clothes. Let them be responsible for brushing their own hair or getting dressed. You're going to need to help them by showing them how to do it. And then, for instance, let's say with getting dressed, maybe you've dressed them and you've talked to them about what you're doing first. Then you give them opportunity to take over little by little. You put the shirt on over their head and you say, okay, would you like to put your right arm in or your left arm in? Or maybe you need to help them put their arm in and then they can pull it the rest of the way out. So giving them is scaffolding, right? But as far as these life skills, but scaffolding so that they begin to be able to independently do these things. Let them be responsible for the preparation and care of the environment as well. Let them help you feed animals or water your plants, or young children especially love activities that encourage this sense of order. They're in a sensitive period for order, actually. So things like sweeping, mopping, dusting, little children up to the age of 6 love those things. So if you can involve them and give them opportunities to do those types of activities as well, that's another wonderful way to encourage and promote that sense of responsibility. And then again, with their activities, if it's you, when you've presented something to them, present it to them and show them where it goes and put it away. And then when they're playing with it or they're using it on their own, you can give them a gentle reminder. You can say something like, only one thing out at a time, or I see you want to use your blocks now. Can you put your train back on the shelf, please? So giving them gentle reminders so that they remember to put things back where they belong as well as a good way to encourage that sense of responsibility.
So there are many, so do it for.
All right, let's see. Chris, you've been waiting. Thank you so much for being patient. And then I'll go one last question after that with Monica.
Good morning in America.
Good morning. Thank you for being here.
Yeah. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Actually, and concerning your presentation, you are very wonderful. And you've been a blessing, a gateway to many parents to pass through to rewind their mind towards their children, and for us also to know what to give to our children. I just want to add this to it. Psychologically, when it comes to children, the moment we start screaming on our children or making them get afraid or whatever, even though they may know, but yet they may be afraid, or we made our children timid and what they're supposed to do because of how you introduce yourself to them as a mother or parent have influence on them. So as last minute point, you were saying that if we are doing something, we should let them do it around with us. We are telling them what you are doing is the best. What? Sorry. They are working outside. What you are doing is the best, or what they are doing is the best. But we need to allow them to do everything as they are very. And when you are observing them, realizing that what they are doing will not help them, then you're not rushing on them or telling them in a harsh manner, but in a polite way. Oh no, don't do it. This is how to do it. You don't rebuke and forget not to teach them the right one. The moment you say, don't do it, this is bad, quickly chip the right one into it so that it will be a replacement of the bad one. That's what I think. And we are always working with psychological ways to raise our children, but we shouldn't raise our children as the way our parents raised us in a bad manner. Otherwise, we will always get our kind. Some people are intelligent, intellectual, but yet because of how they brought them up, they are finding it difficult to move forward with those things. Madam, thank you. Because I got some books called Learning Time. I don't know, and 18 pen. 18 pen. And the pen talk and it do things. Yeah. However, I bought it when I was buying it. I was swallowing bones because it's a very, very expensive book. It's in group. A full total package is about, and by that time I was in Ghana, I was in Africa. I bought it almost 18,000 Ghana cedis. I find it difficult to pay. And my wife was, why do you buy these books? And why you don't, it's too much, it's too expensive. I said, don't know. My mother couldn't afford it when I was baby. My father couldn't afford it when I was baby. And this time I have seen my weakness. So I don't want that weakness to have influence on my children. Therefore, I have to do whatever I will do for them to become somebody in life. So I bought it. Today, it's helping my wife and my children because I wasn't there. Instead of calling a teacher, my wife will have time for them and use the pen to be pointing at things for them, and they will be mentioning it as the pen pronounce it, they also pronounce it. They are picking it up very fast. So we should do our possible best to push our children forward than ourselves so that our future can carry good names. Thank you. That's what I want to say.
Thank you. Yeah, a lot of what you mentioned, Chris, is that foundational principle for Montessori, right, of respecting the child. A lot of the things that you noted, not that we want our children to do things that are dangerous or disruptive, or or if they're, like you're saying, if they're doing something that's maybe something they shouldn't be doing, or we want them to do it differently, we can still speak to them in a respectful way and show them, model for them the right way to do things, or the way we would like them to do things, in a way that doesn't disrespect them or cause them to fear us. Yeah, Monica, go ahead. Oh, I'm so sorry, my dog, there's someone at the door. Monica, go ahead. I see that you're unmuted, Monica, but we're still not able to hear you. Oh, I see you added it in the chat. Let's see. The independence of a child is seen as a weakness to the parent. However, those who broke the rule are getting positive results. Apart from the principles you have mentioned, are there other alternatives? So I think what you're getting at here, for us as adults, we really like the idea that children depend on us, right? We like to know that we're needed. And so it really does create this need for a shift in perspective as the adults to accept the Montessori philosophy and pedagogy, because it really does take us out of the center and puts the child in the center. And so it really does require this shift in thinking. But what you are hinting at here, or mentioning, I believe, is meaning children who are doing things inappropriately, if you will, or breaking the rule, as you say, they're the ones who are getting attention. So it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, right? That there are always reasons why children are doing the things they're doing. There are reasons, needs underlying their behavior. So there's a wonderful book called, and it's a training program as well, but it's called Positive Discipline by Jane Nelson. There is also a version that's specific for Montessori. It's Positive Discipline in the Montessori Classroom. And that was a collaboration between Jane Nelson and Chip DiLorenzo, who's a Montessorian. So Jane Nelson developed Positive Discipline. Chip DiLorenzo is a Montessorian, and they came together to develop the Montessori specific version. But the idea is there's a chart in there, and you can actually look this up without needing to purchase the book or read the book. It's called the Mistaken Goal Chart, and I'll see if I can find a link here for you. But the idea is that all children have this need. I found the link, so I'll share it here in the chat. Oh, I'm so sorry, I just sent it to one person. Let me try that again. There we go. So the idea is that every child has a behavior, has a need, and actually every person. So for instance, if the child is running through the classroom, they're not just running to run. There's usually a reason. Maybe it's because when they run through the classroom, you give them attention and they're wanting your attention. And so the way that the chart is designed to work is you look at column 2 first. You think about how you feel as the parent or the teacher, how you feel as the adult in these situations. And then look at the way that you tend to react. Do you remind them? Do you coax them? Do you give in? Do you retaliate? And then what is the child's response? And that's how you can figure out what it is that the child is seeking. And then it gives you in the last column, column 8, it gives you ways that you can react differently. So if the child is looking for attention and they're only getting it, like you're saying, when they break the rules, then there's other ways that you can give them that attention. So for instance, it says, let's see here, set up routines, plan for special time with that child. So let them know, hey, you know, every day you can expect that I'll sit down with you and we'll do something you want to do. Just special time for us, 10 minutes every night before you go to bed. So that they know there's going to be a time that they're going to get that special attention from you that they're looking for. There are a couple other reasons there, or the mistaken goals. There's things like revenge, as well as misguided power, or this assumed inadequacy, where you think that the child thinks you're going to give up on them or do something for them, that you don't believe in their ability to do it. And so that final column there, column 8, is what's going to give you a couple other options of things that you can do. But it really is based on observing the child and observing your reactions to the child to figure out what those underlying needs are. All right, I think we answered all the questions, and I know we try to keep it to an hour and a half, so I believe we're out of time. Thank you all again for being here. I appreciate those of you that are new faces and those of you that are returning. It was wonderful to be with you again. And I will turn it over if Antonella has any closing remarks. And otherwise, like I said, hopefully I will see you all at future presentations. The next one, if you keep an eye out, is called Back to Nature. And we're going to look at how the Montessori pedagogy and philosophy encourages and promotes this natural environment and bringing nature into a child's life, and why that's important.
Thank Juan. See you tomorrow at same time for another class. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.